Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, it's time for a change. My brothers and my sisters, tonight, as we conclude yet another calendar year, many of us have taken a reflective assessment of the past 12 months. And the results of this assessment indicate that improvement is needed. Look at somebody and say, it's time for a change. Some of us have looked back over the past 12 months and we realize that our clothes don't fit like they used to. It's time for a change. Some of us have looked back over the past 12 months and we realize that we've got a stack of bills over here, but a little money over here. It's time for a change. Look at somebody and say, neighbor, it's time for a change. Some of us have taken a reflective assessment of 2010, and it just seems like we can't get along with anybody. I mean, we've got problems at our home. We've got problems on our job. We can't get along with kin folks. We can't get along with church folk. We've got a problem with relationships. Look at somebody and say, neighbor, it's time for a change. Regardless tonight of where the improvement is needed, I believe that most of you will agree with me when I say that it's time for a change. As a matter of fact, some of us are a lot like the people in this text. We need more than a change. If we would be honest about the situation, we need a downright miracle. Look at somebody and say, neighbor, it's time for a change. Oh, somebody needs to wake up and just clap your hands for Jesus tonight. You can do better than that. Clap your hands for the Lord on this last night in 2010. It's time for a miracle. Briefly tonight, as we take a look at this text, I'd like to call your attention to the following 4 points: the setting, the season, the stirring, and the success. First of all, tonight I see the setting. Notice, if you will, verses number 2 and verse number 3. It reads like this: now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. That's the setting. The point I want to leave with you is that there were all kinds of sick people around the pool. And the Bible says that this multitude of sick people had 5 entrances to the pool. I'm not making it up. It says 5 entrances to the pool. It calls it porches. In other words, they had 5 avenues or 5 colonnades, 5 opportunities to make their way to the pool. And when the timing was right, after they would get into the pool, if they were the first one, they would receive their miracle. Life lesson number 1, you might have multiple ways to get to the pool, but you only have one way to get to Jesus, and that is by faith. Oh, church folks don't know when to shout. Not only do we see the setting, sick people lying around 5 doorways to the pool, but we also see the season. That's point number 2 if you're taking notes. Look at verse number 4. For an angel went down at a certain season. Somebody say certain season. In other words, that which was to take place was not always available. The Bible says a certain season. The Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes chapter number 3 lets us know that there is a time or a season for everything. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, don't miss your season. To everything there is a season. Life lesson number 2. Don't let your season pass you by. Now that we've looked at the setting and the season, let's look at the stirring. That's point number 3 if you're taking notes. Verse number 4 says, for an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water. Now what I need you to see is the significance of the stirring of the water. The stirring of the water represented an unsettling. And how many people got some unsettlings going on in your life? You've got some stuff that has been stirred up. From the front door to the back door, it's been stirred up. Perhaps some things in your life right now, at this very moment, are being stirred up. Oh, come on now. Somebody got some stuff that's been stirred up. Don't fool me now. If you're experiencing stress, you've got some stirring going on in your life. If you're experiencing headaches, nervousness, popping pill after pill after pill, you've got some stirring going on in your life. If you're experiencing turmoil all the way around from the family to the job, you've got some stirring going on in your life. My brothers and my sisters tonight, there are 3 things I need you to understand about the stirring. First of all, the stirring symbolizes the trouble that Jesus promised that we would have in this life. In John chapter 16, verse number 33, it says, in this world ye shall have tribulations. In other words, in this life, you're bound to have trouble. But I came by to let you know it's not about the trouble you have. It's about not letting the trouble have you. Can I get a witness in the house? The second thing I need you to see about this stirring is that it takes faith to step down into trouble, turbulent water. No wonder sheep are frightened by moving water. That's why David said, he says, he leadeth me beside the still water. Can I preach in this house tonight? The third thing I need you to see about this stirring is that if Jesus found peace while traveling through troubled waters, don't you understand, my brothers and my sisters tonight, that you've got to learn to have peace in the midst of your trouble? You've got to have peace in the middle of your storm, because I came by to tell you that the storm is coming, but you've got to learn to have peace that surpasses all man's understanding. Life lesson number 3. Your miracles are sometimes in the midst of troubled waters. Somebody needs to get that point right now. See, you're trying to avoid trouble, but I came by to let you know that your miracle is on the other side of the trouble. And I came by to tell you, don't stop in the trouble, but you've got to go on through the trouble. And this brings me to my 4th and my final point, the success. Verse number 4 says, whosoever then first after the troubling of the water stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. In other words, after the stirring, those who were there were able to move from mediocrity to their miracle. And I believe I've got some people in the house tonight who need to move from mediocrity to your miracle. You see, after the stirring goes on in your life, I came by to let you know that you can move from not enough sufficiency. When you have gone through the stirring in your life, you can move from troubles and trials to triumph, because the Bible says in all these things we're more than conquerors. Anybody want to conquer some stuff in 2011? You didn't conquer it last year, but I came by to tell you that you're going to conquer some stuff. You're going to travel through some stuff. You're going to meet your miracle, because I came by to tell you tonight that I know a man that's got a miracle in the palm of his hand. Can I preach tonight? Perhaps, sit down. You're like the multitude in this text. You need to be made whole. You want to experience the success after your water has been stirred. I need to let you know that before you experience your wholeness or your success, you've got to go through some stuff. Look at somebody and say, you've got to go through some stuff. Before Jacob received his blessing, he had to be broken. Somebody said he had to be broken. Before Joseph could get to the palace, he had to go down in the pit. Before David could become king, he had to conquer his Goliath. He had to be hunted by Saul. He had to have a zigzag experience. Before Naaman could be washed of his leprosy, he had to dip down into the muddy waters of the Jordan. Before the 3 Hebrew boys could be delivered, they had to be dropped into the fire. Anybody in here ever been dropped? Before Daniel's life could be spared, he had to first spend the night with the lions. And sometimes, my brothers and my sisters, before you can get your blessing, you have got to be broken. You too have got to be thrown in the pits of life. You've got to be dropped in the fire. You've got to spend the night with the lions. You've got to be talked about. Anybody been talked about? Got to be scandalized, mistreated, talked about, called everything but a child of God. The psalmist said, weeping may endure for a night, but joy, somebody say joy, joy, unspeakable joy. Joy comes in the morning. I came by to tell you that I'm going to get my joy, because the Bible says the joy of the Lord is my strength. Anybody in here ready for a change tonight? If you want to change, stand to your feet and shout, it's time for a change. Shout, it's time for a change. Somebody in here was stirred in 2010. Somebody struggled in 2010. But I came by to tell you that 2011 is your season. Somebody say yes, 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 ah, yes. Come on and clap your hands for Jesus. Clap your hands for the Lord. It's time for a change.